To make this video while I'm waiting for the sun to go down a little bit. I'm actually about to shoot my thoughts on the Blue Morphic Filter by Polar Pro, and that should be already up now. I'll link it in the card or in the description if you're curious about that. But there it is inside of there. You can't see it, but it's there. But anyways, while I'm sitting here waiting for the sun to go down, I thought I'd just ramble on my thoughts about the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro and why I'm probably not going to get it as a Pocket 4K shooter. So first of all, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K Pro, the name has just gotten longer, it's ridiculous. But why, I mean, originally when the 6K came out, I didn't feel like I needed 6K, even though it would be useful. A lot of people say, what do you need 6K for? Because you're not really delivering anything at 6K. But the flexibility you have for shooting 6K is actually, for someone like me, I love to reframe in shooting interviews and stuff. Instead of, sometimes you do an interview, I like to bring two cameras so I can punch in. I usually have a close-up and a wide. And being able to punch in and punch out really gives you flexibility to manipulate the interview, not manipulate it to make it. When I say manipulate, I mean you can cut out ums and uhs and breaths, and it kind of helps the pacing of whatever you're making when it comes to interviews. And when you have 6K and you're delivering a 4K or 1080p for that matter, you have way more flexibility with being able to punch in. So shooting interviews, that would be way beneficial, especially for someone like me who I'm always looking for multiple angles on anything I do because I like having the options and coverage. So being able to punch in on an interview and punch out and almost give you the illusion that you have two cameras set up when you only have one would be amazing. And if I had that set up, I'd probably still use two cameras and I would almost have three camera angles altogether. Now you still can punch in shooting 4K, especially if you're delivering in 1080, but you can only punch in so much before you start really stretching that image. Another benefit to 6K over 4K is that anything with a warp stabilizer, the way warp stabilizer works is it will punch in on your image and uses the extra space to center in your frame. So obviously if you have more resolution, a larger frame, you can stabilize a bit more without losing too much resolution. But those are benefits of 6K, and that was really appealing to me. But I still held off. I didn't think it was like that important where I needed that. I actually ended up buying a second 4K instead of upgrading to the 6K because it was more important to me to have two matching cameras because I was shooting on the 6500 next to the Pocket 4K. I also still had the GH4 every now and then. If I had to break it out, I would. And those are very, very difficult to match. And usually what would happen is when I was shooting with the 4K, I would have to, I couldn't pull the colors up to match the 4K. I was more restricted by shooting with the Sonys and trying to not push the colors a certain way or push them too much to where I got too far away from just S-Log 8-bit footage. So that was a problem for me. So that's why I went ahead and bought the 4K and had two 4Ks instead of upgrading to a 6K. And with the 6K Pro out, it actually solves a lot of my problems that I have personally with the 4K, which I guess, I mean, I was gonna do a whole other separate video about the 4K, but I guess we'll talk about it now. My main issues with the 4K is it's just rigging it. I mean, this setup here is nice. I don't know if you can see that. It's in full focus. Yeah. So this, I'll link everything in the description that's on this rig right here if you think you like the look of this. It's always different. Every time I go out, I have a different setup. But this is just kind of just a very simple thrown together. I actually have a small HD monitor I put up here, but I'm using it right now. But it's a nice little setup. I mean, there are definitely pros to being able to build the Pocket 4K out because it's modular. But with the 6K Pro, it kind of, I mean, I'm not using one myself, but it looks like it checks all those boxes where you won't need to rig it up. And one of the main things, obviously, it's nothing new. I'm sure you've heard by now, if you own or heard anybody talk about a 4K, is the battery life just is terrible. It sucks, which is fine if you're doing narrative stuff, just buy a bunch of batteries. But I do a lot of long form interviews, or I have other things to worry about on set, you know, working as a one-man band. I don't need to be stressing out over battery life. So obviously I have a V-Lock. Right now I have the core one, which is nice if you don't want to deal with rails. Just mounts to the bottom of that. I think is it core? I'll link it in the description, but I really love this one. But yeah, so like that adds weight there. So the Pocket 6K, you're using the LP6 batteries, which is really nice. I have a lot of those, and that would be beneficial to have. And then the screen. Another thing I hate about the 4K is you can't flip the screen out, which is, I mean, for me is so useful to be able to do that. So I almost always need a monitor, and every time I don't bring one and try to do a real compact, simple setup with this, I regret not having that monitor. So the 6K solves that with the articulating screen it has. So already the 6K over the 4K is better, and it looks like it makes sense to upgrade for me. But the thing is, I've had the 4K for a couple of years now, and I've already invested into solving those issues, you know, with the V-Lock batteries, the small HD monitor, actually a couple monitors now, but yeah, I mean, the rigging itself too, trying to get the V-Lock on there, I've had to invest in just small rig parts, you know, rails and V-Lock mounts and all that crap. But yeah, that stuff adds up. So I've already put well enough, you know, if you add up what even just this setup here, you add all that up, I've already spent enough to put in to buy a 6K Pro. If I were to, you know, outright sell all this, yeah, maybe that might be worth getting a 6K Pro. And then I just would have the setup as is. Because if I got the 6K Pro, I don't think I'd rig it, because that would be the main reason I'd be getting it, is because I don't need to rig it. It would have everything I need in it, which is cool. But I don't recall the exact battery life on it. I'll have to look. So I'm reading that it, using the MPF battery, it provides 60 minutes of recording when shooting in 6K. So yeah, I mean, that's cool. I mean, yeah, I think about an hour's worth of battery life continuous recording would be enough. Seriously, on this 4K, I get maybe 20 minutes if I'm lucky in 4K. Yeah, it goes by quick. So with the 6K, I think that where the main killer setup would be is to get that battery grip, so you can have 3 LP6 batteries, and I've seen that you can hot swap them while it's charging the internal one, so you never take the internal battery out, which is really awesome. So you could go really light with that, even with a bag full of LP6 batteries, where I usually go around with two V-Locks, 2 or 3, because this one, I like it because it's light, but the capacity rolling, I can probably get 3 hours out of it. Sometimes I need 8 or so, you know, on a longer day. So I do have a bigger V-Lock. It's a monster, and it will last all day, but I have to use rails on it, so it's an uncomfortable setup. I don't mind rigging and having rails. I actually like the weight. That's a pro, obviously, for going handheld if you don't have stabilized lenses. But also client perception. I talk about this a lot, how, I mean, judgment exists. Clients will judge you on everything. So even if you show up, you know, with a little camera, they're probably not gonna have the most confidence in you if you're just holding a little point and shoot until they see your finished product. So I started rigging stuff out. I mean, you put a matte box on anything, it looks really professional. A client will look at that and think it's really cool, even if you have no glass in it, which I did that for a while starting out, because I hooked up with some bigger clients. I was like, oh crap, I only got the 6500. It looks like a point and shoot camera. Anyways, beside the fact there. So I get the 6K, I'm not gonna rig it. So it's gonna look, people don't understand the camera world. That kind of looks, I think it looks kind of amateur. It's weird looking if you show up to a set or with that, to when clients are used to seeing, you know, bigger video cameras that'll just look like a mess of crap. Yeah, but the main reason I'm not getting the 6K is because this is just for me, not that this is the perception of everyone out there, and I know that, but I run a production company, and we're actually more of a all-around creative agency, so we do more than just video production. So we do a lot of marketing material and help clients market their service or product. And also, if I'm doing interviews, most of the time with my experience right now, I'm also conducting interviews. So I have to conduct an interview. I don't really have time to be worrying about the batteries, trying to frame up and not have to walk around the camera every time if I don't have a monitor. So that stuff's important to me. So for me, it's not so much an upgrade if I buy the 6K. If I buy the 6K, it's more of an ease of use thing where I won't have to rig my 4K out as much, because I love Blackmagic and the color science, but I'm still looking at something with autofocus, and I'm realizing that's way more important to me right now when it comes to on-set reliability. Is I don't always have a focus puller. I can't always hire somebody for just to pull focus. Another thing too is time I spend building my camera rig up, building this out. This is not always how I go. I do like the top handle, but this actually is a very unlevel setup. It's not easy to keep keep your horizon straight on that. It's a funky setup. I spend too much time building my rig up, depending on how I'm going to shoot it that day. What am I using? Am I running around? Am I gonna be on a tripod? Am I doing an interview? Am I doing an interview with B-roll? Do I need to go from a tripod, from a long form interview, and then hop onto a gimbal like the Ronin S or Ronin M? And how much time do I have to do that? And all those little things, you know, you just don't think about until you're in the moment. And after years of experience, that stuff is annoying to me. I'm tired of having to bring a tool and reconfigure my camera on my run and gun shoots. Now, I think it's a cinema camera for sure. So it's meant to be rigged out. It's meant to be operated in that way where every shot is precise and planned. But sometimes in the nature of freelance work as a solo shooter, you're doing a lot of things at once. So there are other cameras out there that I will probably get over the 6K. And that's the main reason I won't be upgrading to the 6K, because I need something similar, but the 6K isn't quite there for me. My 4Ks check all the boxes and do everything I need it to that it already is doing that the 6K is not going to do for me more, other than ease of use. And if I'm investing in ease of use, I need something a little more. So for me, I'm still looking at the FX6 because it's got autofocus. Overall, it's just a grab and go camera. I'm not saying full frame is better. I am starting to enjoy it more with the low light capabilities. That's huge. And two, when I'm in a run and gun situation and I don't have time to really plan my lighting or my framing, I know it's lazy, but when we're talking business, when it's just art aside and it's just business and you got to shoot a quick interview or stop and shoot something real quick with somebody and you don't have a lot of time with them because either they're on the clock, they don't have time to spend with you as much. I've been in situations like that where clients have given me their employees and they're not very cooperative, or they have a job to do and they're just trying to hurry and get done. So having that full frame look and shooting on a super shallow lens that you don't have to manually focus is easy to make a shot interesting. So that's where my mindset's kind of changing from more of the business use of these cameras, and that's more of my perspective on these. As an artistic narrative camera, 6K I would definitely probably buy right now. But I'm looking like efficiency is what I'm after right now. So all the hours I spend building and I say hours, I'm not trying to be dramatic, but over the years, how much time have I spent going through pieces and small rig things and bolting this up and breaking it down for gimbals and building it back up, and that time adds up, and time is money, and I need to simplify that and not stress out over my rig and make sure my screws are tight, or if something comes loose or falls off. I need to really focus on the task at hand, the job, the project, the video. And a camera that's gonna take that stuff, the worries off of that for me, and have autofocus and do better in low light where I don't have to, it depends on the project. So some projects I do are just quick in and out, kind of run and gun documentary. Some I do are we are meeting for months talking about it, and every bit of it is planned just like you would an actual film. Sometimes it's not. And the ones that are not, I do more than the ones that are. So that's where my time comes into play, and that's why the 6K is not worth it for me to buy, because it doesn't add much more value to me as a business when it comes to my end product. What value is the 6K going to bring at the end product that my 4K is not? And it's more of a ease of use thing. So I have two 4Ks. I'll take that any day over one 6K. And like I said, I've had them for years before the 6K Pro came out. If the 6K Pro came out earlier, it'd be a different story. I would definitely pick the 6K Pro over any of these cameras right now. If you don't have a 4K and you don't have a 6K and you're looking at this lineup, get the 6K Pro. You won't regret it. The batteries, the battery life alone on that, if you get that with the battery grip, that's the way to go. The screen will be just a godsend right now, because there's so many times I'm just struggling with that. You get a mount a monitor on it. Yeah, go with the 6K if you're still looking. I've not used it, but I can tell you the color science is the same about Blackmagic is a great way to go, first of all. But the 6K solves a lot of those problems that you're going to have with the 6K Pro is going to solve a lot of the problems you're going to have with the regular 6K and the 4K. And I'm not sure why they called it the Pro, because it kind of makes like the 4K and the regular 6K are not professional cameras. They are professional cameras. You are going to use them the same way you would a professional cinema camera. They are cinema cameras all the way through and through. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about the 6K Pro and why I'm not going to buy it as a Pocket 4K shooter. I don't think the upgrade is worth it. I've already put the investment in. If I sell everything, like I said, but it just doesn't seem worth it to me to go through all that. Because even if I sell my rig or my camera, my 4K, I'm only going to get, you know, $800, $1,000 out of it, depending on what I sell with it. It's such a cheap enough camera. If I have to sell it to buy the 6K Pro, it almost seems pointless. I'd rather just buy the 6K Pro. But doing that is not going to add any value to my business. So it's just not a smart investment for me in my position right now. So not going to get it. 4Ks are fine. They're great if you have them. I'm not saying don't upgrade. Like I said, this is just my perception of where I'm at on if I should upgrade, if it would be an upgrade or not. But yeah, so hope you guys enjoyed this ranting video while I'm sitting here. If you made it all the way through here, I appreciate you listening to me, and it feels good that you would value what I have to say. If you do, if not, whatever. But let me know in the description, what do you think of the Pocket 4K compared to the Pocket 6K Pro, or the Pocket 6K compared to the Pocket 6K Pro? Are you guys going to upgrade? Is anybody going to upgrade to that? Or if you don't have one at all, are you going to go with the 6K Pro? And if so, like why or why not? Or the other way? I'm interested to hear I want to hear what everyone has to say about this. This is it's a really interesting time for cameras, and it's fun to talk about. So, well, that's all I have to say right now. I'm going to get shooting this Blue Morphic video. Like I said, it'll be linked up. It'll be linked to the video. And, well, that's it for now. Well, thanks for watching. Thank you for listening to me. You guys have a good one.